Welcome back. All right, so news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Sunday, June the 23rd. We'll start off with Matvey Michkov, and there's been talk in the offseason about him coming over. Apparently tomorrow, it looks like SKA St. Petersburg is going to dissolve his contract, release him from said contract, and allow him to sign with the Philadelphia Flyers. Michkov, a dynamic offensive forward who may have been drafted a little bit later than expected because of the fact, in part, that he was going to be KHL property for a while, but it looks like it's just 1 year, and now Philadelphia is going to have him come over. So this could be a huge deal for the Philadelphia Flyers and their offense. Michkov seen as a very talented goal scorer and offensively minded player. Also, the release and Pierre LeBrun saying that this is being seen as being done on compassionate grounds. His father passed away a year ago, and so allowing him to go over to Philadelphia, get a fresh, clean start, could be great for Michkov. So all the best to him. It looks like he's going to be a Flyer as soon as tomorrow. Again, once he's released from his contract with St. Petersburg, he's free to sign with the Philadelphia Flyers and come over and play in the National Hockey League. Although I will say there's no official agreement now between the KHL and the NHL, and there hasn't been for a couple of years. So at times the KHLs kind of take advantage of that. We'll see whether or not NHL teams continue to respect those KHL contracts. I don't see any reason why they won't, but yeah, Michkov is going to be released from his tomorrow, and he'll be coming over and playing for the Flyers this coming season. A minor trade made between the San Jose Sharks and the Philadelphia Flyers as we get ready for the draft on Friday. Igor Afanasyev, traded to the San Jose Sharks. He was a 45th overall pick in 2019. Easy for me to say. He played 2 games for Nashville this season, did not record a point. With Milwaukee in the AHL, he recorded a lot of points. 27 goals, 27 assists, 54 points in 56 games. Going the other way to Nashville is forward Ozzy Weisblatt, who was drafted in the first round in 2020 by the San Jose Sharks, 31st overall. It was seen not necessarily as a reach, but it was seen as a pick that was just interesting. Interesting that he got picked in the first round by San Jose. Playing for the Barracuda in the AHL this year, 38 games, 3 goals, 8 assists, 11 points. Then with the Milwaukee Admirals. So Nashville's had a good look at the player. 16 games, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points. So Afanasyev goes to San Jose. Weisblatt goes to Nashville. We'll see if either of them has playing time at the NHL level this year. I'm thinking Afanasyev has an easier time of getting there because San Jose definitely needs some depth forwards. So we'll see. I want to apologize to Firebirds fans. So last night we had the meetup in Chilliwack, which was not very well attended. That may very well be the last time that I have one in Chilliwack because the attendance at each one in Chilliwack just seems to be dropping. And I get it; it's nowhere near like transit hubs like the ones we have in Coquitlamar. We're having one of those this coming Saturday. But I got home in time to watch the third period of last night's Firebirds Hershey game. So if you're a Firebirds fan, you know where that's going. Hershey has a perfect record when I watch, and that continued. So they won the game. I was kind of surprised they won it how they did, but they got that goal late, and then they held on. So Game 6 is tomorrow in Hershey. I'm not going to be able to watch that because of Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. And I did see a suggestion asking, well, why can't you watch both? I can't risk missing something major going on in the Stanley Cup Final, Game 7, because I'm watching an AHL game. Even as important as the AHL game is, the Stanley Cup Final needs my absolute undivided attention. So yeah, during the regular season, I can watch whatever, but at this point in time, I have to give my undivided attention to the Stanley Cup Final. All the best, though, to Hershey and Coachella Valley. Because I won't be able to watch Game 6, my guess is Coachella Valley wins that one, and then I'll be able to watch Game 7 on Wednesday because there's no hockey anywhere else on Wednesday, so Hershey should win it in 7 when I'm watching them, right? They're 4-0 now in the playoffs in games I've watched all or a portion of. So, yeah, they have a chance to round it out and finish it tomorrow, the Bears. I think they're going for their 13th Calder Cup. I know they're the all-time leader in Calder Cups, and of course Coachella Valley is looking for that elusive first Calder Cup. Ian Mitchell. So moving back to NHL news, Ian Mitchell signs a 1-year, 2-way contract with the Boston Bruins. It's worth $775,000 at the NHL level. I wasn't able to find the AHL number, but he played 13 games for Boston this year, 2 assists. He added 24 games and 42 games in Providence. So Mitchell, depth defenseman, just a depth move. There's no risk to this at all. And so I'm glad Boston's keeping him around. He's still young enough he could develop into a third pairing defenseman, but at this point he's a fill-in, and that's fine. You need fill-ins. You absolutely have to have that. Bobrovsky. So moving on to current news from the Stanley Cup final. Bobrovsky skipped practice today to get him back into his usual routine from the first 3 rounds. The extra day off has apparently thrown off some routines. So Bobrovsky's being part of that. So they're giving him the last practice day off before the Stanley Cup final Game 7. This was the last day of practice in the hockey season. And so, yeah, Bobrovsky could use some sort of reset because since the start of the third period in Game 3 against the Oilers, he has a .781 save percentage. Yeah, that's an ugly number. And so that's something that he's going to have to, get in order. Again, for Florida, they need to find a way to reverse the momentum that the Oilers just have. And right now, the Oilers look virtually unstoppable. But so did Florida after the first 3 games. So, again, this final's been fantastic. But Bobrovsky needs to get back on track. So, Florida doing what they can to get him back into his normal routine. Goaltenders are definitely, they love their routine. And so getting him back into that could very well help them. So, we'll see. And then we get into the discussion that you're going to have going into a Game 7. So you have the Edmonton Oilers on one side, the Florida Panthers on the other. Should all of Canada be united behind the Oilers? I don't know. Is all of the U.S. united behind Florida? No. It's one of those odd arguments, and I've had this argument with people over the years. Now, I think it'd be a great story if the Oilers win tomorrow, sure. But if Florida wins their first ever Stanley Cup, that's a good story on its own. Am I kind of rooting for the Oilers? Well, I mean, just from a storyline perspective, that would just be like one of the greatest comebacks in the history of sports. So, yeah, I mean, if the Oilers finish that story, great. But if the Florida Panthers win Game 7, there's a lot of interesting plot lines out of that, too. So the disagreement seems to be whether or not all of Canada has to rally around the Oilers. The one argument I've always made, because when I became a Bruins fan, I definitely got a lot of, how can you cheer for their American team? How can you cheer for them? And my answer was always the same, which was I understand that it's the same country, but I don't live in Edmonton, Calgary, Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa. So it doesn't necessarily mean I'm rooting for them just because that team plays out of Canada, because I don't go to those cities, so I don't necessarily have an attachment to teams from there just because it's a Canadian team. So yeah, look for that debate to be there all over social media, internet-wise. But again, I understand why there are Canadian fans who are just, we've got to get a Stanley Cup back after, 31 years. For me, I mean, it'd be great if they got a Stanley Cup after 31 years, but yeah. Either way, tomorrow's going to be a lot of fun. It's a Game 7. And so the question I have is, for Canadian viewers, do you feel like you have to root for the Oilers because that's the Canadian team in Game 7 of the final, or no? And again, I definitely think there are definitely some Canuck fans not rooting for the Oilers. I know there are some Flames fans not rooting for the Oilers, unless you really don't like Matthew Tkachuk and want to see him, crying. And then you've definitely got some fans of other teams. Like, there aren't necessarily Toronto fans that are going to be happy if the Oilers win. So it's just, to me, it's an odd thing to say that, like, if you're a real true Canadian hockey fan, you need to root for the Oilers. And I've seen that today and thought to myself, no. And I'm saying that even though, yes, I would love to see the Oilers win that game tomorrow. But again, it's not like I'm going to be all upset if Florida wins Game 7. It's one of the benefits of not having a team I'm rooting for in the Stanley Cup final. I don't have any nerves when the game gets started up. It's kind of a nice thing when the game gets rolling and the anthems are going, and I'm kind of like, cool, can't wait to see who wins. I'm completely, you hook me up to a machine that's going to say blood pressure's fine, heart rate's fine, he's not nervous. If it's Boston, Dallas, or Vancouver, there'd be alarms going off. So, yeah. Let me know your thoughts, though. Do you feel like there's you have to cheer for Edmonton feeling that you agree with or you disagree with? Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It is greatly appreciated. I will talk to you again soon.